Hey gang, when it comes to Christianity, have you ever noticed that there are a lot of flavors, if you will, of Christianity? If you consider yourself a Christian, you know this, we are not a homogeneous bunch. In fact, sometimes Christianity resembles an old Baskin-Robbins ice cream shop. Remember those? Well, all of us churches, we're schlepping ice cream, but it certainly doesn't all taste the same. Well, today in Romans chapter 10, Paul is wrestling with this question. What happens when you run into a flavor of faith that doesn't taste so good? A flavor of faith that doesn't agree with you. In the 1980s, you might remember this movie. There was a movie starring Michael Keaton called Mr. Mom. And there's this great scene in the movie Mr. Mom where Keaton's character, Jack Butler, is taking his kids to school for the first time as a stay-at-home dad. He pulls up to the school, he drives past all the other cars waiting in line, and his kids tell him, "Dad, you're doing it wrong." Well, he puts on a face of confidence and he says to his kids, "We're not doing it wrong, we're doing it the Jack Butler method." Well, all the other cars are honking at him. The kids are mortified. And as he pulls up to drop the kids off, there's a woman in a yellow rain jacket who has him roll down the window. He says, "Hi, Jack, I'm Annette." And then she simply says to him, "You're doing it wrong." Romans 10 is Paul's Annette moment. "Hi, Israel," he says. "I'm Paul. You're doing it wrong." Paul suggests that the Israelites were doing it wrong because they believed it was the way they perfectly followed the law. They tended to all their religious traditions, all their religious rules that were the foundation. They believed that these were the foundation of their relationship with God. They believed it was their rule following that pleased God, that set them right with God and established their sort of righteousness as God's selected people. But Paul insists you're doing it wrong. Paul insists that Christ's life, death, and resurrection brought the end to that sort of thinking, to that rule following as the basis of our relationship with God. That we are made right with God by following all the rules, the laws, and the religious traditions. What is Israel doing wrong? In a sense, they're reading and obeying Scripture as if Jesus isn't the Messiah. You see, for Paul, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus changed everything for us. It declared to all the world that through faith, we are already right with God. And for God, that's something our acts of piety, our striving for perfection, our religious rule following, and tending to traditions, they'll never give us. So what do you do when you run into a flavor of Christianity that doesn't taste right, that doesn't agree with you? How do you know if they are doing it wrong? In Romans chapter 10, Paul gives us a litmus test, if you will. Do they prescribe to the idea that by our purity and perfection, our rule following and tending to tradition, that by that we are somehow pleasing God? We somehow improve our standing with God. We make ourselves right with God. Or do they believe, as Paul did, that the life, death, and resurrection meant something for you and me? The cross was God saying to you and me, none of that matters. I'll do anything for you. You are mine, and nothing will separate you from my love for you. Want to know if they're doing it wrong? Just use that litmus test, and you'll get it right. A couple of questions for you today. When have you experienced Christianity that maybe doesn't taste right, that doesn't agree with you? And secondly, what do you think of Paul's litmus test?